Hello and welcome to what we believe to be the world's first fully interactive multisensory webcast. Thanks for joining us from wherever you are. We've got people we know from all over the world, so we hope this will be a really interactive and interesting session for you. My name is SImon Harrop and I'm the CEO of Brand Sense Agency, and this is my colleague John, the planning director and the co-founder of the business. Over the next 25 minutes or so, we'll be hopefully taking you into the wonderful world of multisensory and all that that can mean for your business. Hopefully you will have been able to register in time to receive your multisensory pack, and I'd like you please to have that to hand during the course of the webinar so that you can use it as we go along. You'll also see on your screen towards the bottom there is a box into which you can input any questions that you may have. There will be a session towards the end for question and answers, a 5-minute session, so please do feel free as we go along, as a question occurs to you, just to type that in now, and those questions will be handed to us to discuss later on. What we're going to be covering over the next few minutes is 4 major things. We're going to start with a little bit of thinking and a little bit of a discussion as to why the senses are so powerful and so important for you to consider as part of your brand planning strategy. Then we're going to consider why multisensory is such a powerful thing and tool that you can use in your retail experience. And we'll be looking thirdly at a case study of how that's been applied to the retail experience of a bank in Colombia. So this has a retail banking flavour to it. And finally, we'll be looking at a few simple steps that you can take to bring these benefits, the benefits of multisensory branding, to your business. So I wanted to start with a very brief overview of why the senses are important. And to do that, I'm going to start with what I believe is a pretty astounding figure. We have discovered that actually 83% of all marketing communications appeals purely to the sense of vision, the sense of sight. How do we know this? Well, about 3 years ago, we set out to create one of the world's biggest pieces of research into how consumers, we as people, interact with the brands and the products that we buy into and that we believe and trust. That piece of research took over 2 years. We had thousands of consumers involved in the project. We looked at 13 brands across 20 major countries, and it took us about 2 years to do. What I'm going to do now is just share with you the very top level findings from that piece of research. On the left of this chart, you will see basically that what we found out is that when it comes to the relationship between brand and consumers, the senses that we use to make sense of that relationship are actually surprisingly in balance. Now, of course, we're visual beings, and of course the sense of sight is important to us, but when you look at the other 4 senses, you can see from the left-hand side of the chart that actually they're much more in balance than we might perhaps have thought. And yet, the really amazing thing is that when you compare that with marketing spend and how marketing people allocate their budgets, there is this huge and totally ridiculous, I believe, over-reliance on the sense of sight. If you look at it, there's only, about 4% of marketing spend is to what I believe are very powerful senses of smell, taste and touch, and we'll look at that in a minute. So this is either a real problem for marketing, or you could look at it much more optimistically and say, well, here's a real opportunity for me as a business to address this. Another way of looking at this is to just use a little anecdote. I'd like you to imagine that you're single, some of you may be, and you go to a party. And if you can remember when you're single and you go to a party, then you'll probably, as you go into the room, you'll be looking around to see who's attractive to you. So you're using the sense of sight there as a little bit of a screen. Is this person worth talking to? If you see someone who's attractive, if you've had a drink or two perhaps, you might then pluck up the courage to go and talk to them. And you're entering into a dialogue there using the sense of obviously language but hearing too. And if you're starting to build up a rapport with them, then this is someone that's worth taking into a deeper level and into a deeper relationship. And as the evening wears on, you might then hold them by the hand and lead them onto the dance floor. You might put your arm around them. You're getting close and proximate now. And as the evening wears on, you'll start to smell their fragrance, and if you've had a great time together and you're really bonding well, you might ultimately get to taste them. I'm thinking with a kiss. And as it is with our human relationships, I believe it's very true that the same applies for our relationships to the brands and the products that we believe and buy into. And so, for you as a retailer or as a marketing director or someone involved in the brands that you work with, particularly in the retail banking sector, then there is here a huge opportunity for you to think about that retail experience. How can we make it more emotionally engaging? How can it mirror our human relationships? And ultimately, how can we get to the kiss quicker? So to bring this into a little bit more context, I'd like to start by thinking about the senses individually. And here is a picture, obviously, of two sets of Crayola crayons. Now, one of these is an imitation and one of these is an original. And of course, just to look at them, you can't tell the difference because our sense of sight just isn't, it's interpretive. We don't really know. So how might you be able to tell the difference? Well, actually, the one set of crayons is the original, and it has this original and very identifiable brand smell. And it smells of Crayola crayons. Anyone who's used them as a child will instantly recognize it. And yet, about 20 or so years ago, the production engineers thought, I know, we're very clever chaps, wouldn't it be great if we could engineer that smell out so that they smelt of nothing? And that's exactly what they did. But believe it or not, within just a matter of weeks, there was a huge international outcry from customers saying, look, it's just not Crayola anymore. And what they'd failed to recognise is that the sense of smell for this brand was a hugely powerful part of the brand equity. So, you know, start to think about your brand. Is this something that you could use to your benefit? Or indeed, is it something that you've already got but you're not aware of? And that's true for all sensory signals. And the reason that the sense of smell in this instance was so powerful is that what we know is that the sense of smell is linked to the part of our brain that controls our basic emotions and our memories, and it's part of our instinctual human behaviour. It's called the limbic system, and there's a direct connection between the nose and the limbic system. Psychologists talk about the sense of smell addressing what they call the 4 Fs, which stands for fight, flight or running away, food, and forgive me, procreation. That basic instinctual human behaviour. So it's a really powerful sense for you as a brand to be using to your benefit. And actually we also know that the sense of smell and taste are very closely related. So what I'd like you to do now, if you could please, is to, within your pack, there is a nose clip. And I'd like you, and there's also a little bag with a flavoured sweet inside, and what I'd like you to do is put the nose clip on your nose like this. Now, I'll have to take it off because I can't speak with it on. And once you've got the nose clip on your nose, I'd like you to put this flavoured sweet in your mouth. And I'll give you a moment to do that. Okay, good. Right. I'd like you, in your own mind, to see if you can describe to yourself what that flavour tastes like. Hopefully what you're getting is just an element of sweetness, if you're lucky. I'll allow that to happen for a minute or two. Now, when you're ready, if you could now please take that nose clip off, and you should see an amazing difference, and suddenly you're getting a flavour. I'll tell you, I can't ask you the question, but I'll tell you it's actually the taste of a cappuccino coffee. And you should see now, just through that little simple experiment, the close relationship between the senses of smell and taste. Actually in the mouth we can only taste sweet, sour, salt and bitter. And the rest of the smell of taste is delivered to us through the sense of smell. And it's a simple exercise, very, very engaging, but what it's really showing you is the interrelationship between all the senses and how important it is to think about your brand from a holistic sensory point of view. You can't just do one thing, you have to think of it all together.